that we've been compiling over the last several weeks and running into months. Get direction in terms of if you'd like presentations, we can bring this back next week. We have already started down the path based upon our direction to fund the resource or the testing component in the school districts, the pilot program. So we've started down the path of the prosecutor's office drafting that agreement, which we should be able to utilize for any project on the list with some tweaks here and there. So that's currently being drafted. Some of the projects on the list are ones that are internal, such as the sheriff's office, the corrections officers' reimbursements. We're already doing that. We were allowed to reimburse ourselves for our healthcare expenses that we made relative to COVID. So some of these have already started through the process. Technology upgrades upstairs, common police court, those have already occurred. But some of the other ones will require a little more in-depth effort to bring them forward. So we can have presentations, we can just start down the path based upon the list, whatever is the pleasure of the board.
A lot of these have been familiar to us in some way, shape, or form too.
Yes.
So is there a deadline on when we need to act on any of this or spend the money?
2026.
Okay, so we can act on it anytime between now and then?
Yes, we actually have to have it obligated by 2024 and spent no later than the end of 2026. Some of these things, though, I will tell you, do have kind of deadlines coming up, like the water softening. We will be spending a majority of our internal funds on the water softening, according to Chris Weinich, probably in January or February. So those are ones that, we need to get the mechanisms in place to do some of our internal stuff. The other ones are...
So we can actually spend almost $6.5 million of the ARPA funds on our water softening infrastructure.
project, that's correct. And what that would potentially allow you to do is remove the surcharge to our customers
Yeah,
early.
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm in favor of that, but I'd like to go through some of these others with you all privately before we do anything with them. Which ones are we actually have already spent? You say we've done the technology upgrades for the Common Police Court already, and we've spent ARPA funds on that?
Yes.
Okay, is there any other thing in that category where we've actually spent the money already?
Yeah, that Warren County in our own, and I think Martin starred them. If you see next to star,
Oh.
the starred ones have already taken place.
Oh, they've taken place or they've started?
They have taken. They're already done. We've expended those funds on our upgrades to our own IT to allow more.
Yeah, the work might not have been done, but
The purchase order's already
allocation
been.
was done.
That's correct.
Okay, so the large one here is the sheriff personnel costs. We've already paid that?
we reimbursed ourselves.
We reimbursed ourselves. That's correct. So, for what we've spent to date from March 3rd
Okay.
forward.
Okay, and so, are all those funds already expended? And we've reimbursed ourselves entirely for that?
Not entirely. From March 3rd through current date,
Okay,
we've
so
reimbursed ourselves. So it's
how much is
kind of
It's ongoing.
it's ongoing, but that is the total estimated value through
Okay.
the end of the year.
Okay.
And
all
there
right.
was a cap on that, right?
A percentage cap.
I don't recall seeing a cap.
So theoretically, we could have used it all on sheriff's reimbursement?
I don't think so.
I thought there was a cap.
I did too.
I don't know that we would have used that much in total for that, but
But that's basically a way of reimbursing the general fund.
yes, that's correct. It reduces our expenses.
Okay. All right.
I will tell you, we are working with the health department on their mobile van, their mobile vaccination van. That will also assist them in doing actual COVID testing, which Dwayne has recently reached out and said that they are in need of. So we are currently moving down the path of trying to procure that.
Well, again, thank you for coming up with the list. I think that's a good idea, that we kind of study through this, ask you specifically what's going on, what does this mean, what is this? If we want to have a discussion on the enhancement, I know Commissioner Jones was leading the effort on the child care enhancement and working with Lauren on what does that look like, because that's one of the things I was talking about with, the working poor. How do we get people off of government assistance and back into the workforce? What does that program look like? Things along those lines I think would be productive to discuss. So,
And that, so Martin has it just as an enhancement, but it also is developing additional childcare capacity. So it's not only enhancing the people that, or the population that we're serving, but it's actually increasing the capacity for childcare services.
In this instance, it's really looking at family childcare, meaning the childcare that occurs in someone's home. They're not necessarily related, but someone who has a childcare business in their home. And the reason why that's important for working families is because that's typically where we find low-income families getting childcare, and the childcare that's available in non-traditional work hours, so weekends, overnight, second or third shift. And so we have seen a decline in family childcare capacity. And you might remember when Lauren was here at one of these times talking about how when they're dealing with families who are trying to either remain connected to the workforce or get back into the workforce, having this type of childcare option is super important. So that's the issue. That's one of the issues that we're trying to address, is how we can cultivate some of these family childcare options where she can be connecting those seeking work or needing to be able to stay connected to work, can do that.
very good. Look forward to hearing more about that, because with 10 million job openings, luckily they've cut off the enhanced stay-at-home benefit of not working. So hopefully some of those people continue to transition back. But in this particular circumstance, we're talking about people that are on government assistance. They want to go back to work, but yet at the low end of the socioeconomic scale, they can't afford to go back to work because child care is too expensive, and basically the government, they'll make more by staying home. And that's exactly what we don't want to see happen. We want those folks back out in the workforce. So interested in learning more about that. Thank you. Yeah, I think we should take that under consideration, all of these.
Okay, I mean, individually, if you have questions and need me to expand on some of the backbones behind this, we'd be happy to do that, and/or if you would like specific ones,
And so-
presentations.
Well, thank you. And so last week, you did bring up to my colleagues about the Tom Isaacs and the program in Warren County that was approved by the governor and the Ohio Department of Health. That's essentially trying to keep our schools open, that our schools in particular that choose not to force their students to wear a mask, that with the quarantining rules, that there is a pilot program moving forward. But there's a drawback to that, which was what worked out to be a backdoor mask mandate, that one case could result in 10 to 15 quarantines for children and everybody that's around the school. And so the Warren County superintendents came up with a plan and threw it out to the governor, and they said yes, that let's try it. And so there's some logistical issues with that, and I think that when Tom Isaacs called me, it was the school districts, not everybody has this infrastructure in place to actually do this testing. We don't know if this is going to go on for a month or the entire school year, but could we help? And I believe our answer is yes, we can help with, especially in the context of having all these dollars floating around.
Yes, And I'm kind of happy to report that they're actually onboarding 12 individuals this week to do that testing. We were a little nervous that we would not be able to get qualified individuals to do it, and they did it. And all 12 will be onboarded this week, and I believe they are scheduled to start next week.
Awesome. Yeah, I told you, I thought this was one job that would not go unfilled because this, there's so many healthcare professionals inside of these districts. A parent that potentially wants to work, for a limited amount of time that believes in this mission of keeping the kids in schools without a mask. I didn't think that would be very hard, and that's good to hear.
And I think that they were able to kind of accommodate geographical locations too, based upon the individuals and kind of keeping them close to home. So that I think they were very excited with the outcome of.
And this is all in the context of we're still planning on doing a tax holiday for our residents, correct?
Yeah, we talked about doing a package, so I think what we need to do is just kind of settle on this and then kind of put the whole package together, and telescope that out. That was what we had been talking about.
Very good.
And going back to what we said, we don't need to do anything further with the matters that Dave just commented on, because we already did that last week.
You gave me direction, and that's part of the MOU, and that is actually on this list. It's estimated to be roughly $850,000 in cost for the.
The quarantine project is what
Yes,
you're
that's
testing.
correct.
Right, okay, good.
So that is in process.
Awesome.
Dave, I just wanted to give a shout out to Auditor Matt Nolan and his team on a really great audit finding by the state. They've consistently have had a really strong team, but I know that he's been working really hard with his employees to make sure that they're executing on a lot of the things that we set forth in policy, and kudos to him and his entire staff for once again coming through with a excellent audit report. It's really awesome.
It's a great point. Yeah, I think we normally do a good job, or they normally do a good job with that, and I think this one was as good as it's ever been, so. Good point. The other thing I think I would say in this context, I know there's a lot of discussion going around that there was a recent executive order relative to vaccinations in the workplace for every employer that has more than 100 employees. I personally, and I just want to be on the record with this, I'm against that. I have no intention with my vote of complying with that. I think that we will do what we've done in the past when we actually wound up suing. The Obama administration and 13 other states joined our lawsuit. I have no problem going down that path. I have a feeling that's not going to be for us to fight. I have a feeling that there's a lot of other governors that are quickly saying that executive edict, that order is unconstitutional. But from my standpoint, since we are an employer with more than 100 employees, and we got some sort of an executive order that I don't think is constitutional at all, I want to, at least from my perspective, communicate to our employees, I've got no intention of forcing any of our employees to actually get vaccinated. I encourage them all to get vaccinated, but I don't think that's the role of government to force someone into a personal health care decision such as that.
Yeah,
So-
well, I agree with that entirely. Has this mandate been issued to us? don't
I have
think
not
that-
seen
well, I don't think that
any
anything's happened yet.
specifics, no.
Well, and I agree with David. It's obviously, we all on this dais have been vaccinated. I recommend it to people. But this is something that they individually have to decide. And the very idea that government would do this, and of course, I think the Obama administration recognizes that their order is unconstitutional, which is why they're doing it through a health department type of edict, through an OSHA kind of a guideline kind of thing. And they know that they're on very thin ice. So we won't We don't intend to mandate, I agree with David, we will not mandate that our people get vaccinated. We recommend that they do. We support our health department's efforts to vaccinate as many people in our jurisdiction as possible. We know that almost over 80% of the people in Warren County that are at risk because of age have been vaccinated. And we can see by the numbers of people that are getting seriously ill, which is declining and way fewer, and the people that are dying, which is almost, I think in Warren County, I don't know, I have any reported deaths in the last 2 months. I'm not sure that we've had anything that's occurred, at least that I've heard of. And I think that's a testament to the fact that the people at risk have been vaccinated, and that there are so many other people that have already had COVID and are even more immune to it because of that. So I think we've reached a point where our county and the citizens of our county have heeded the warnings of the seriousness of this virus, but it's inappropriate for government to tell anybody that they must take a vaccine or they lose their jobs or they all of a sudden are being under some other regimen of testing that's inappropriate. Obviously, we want to protect people, and we do that by justifiably quarantining people that are ill. But other than that, people have the right to choose their medical course of action in this regard with their own consultation with their own doctors.
Right. And I, since I've talked maybe even too freely about my own situation with being vaccinated and getting COVID and all of that recently, I took a trip on a commercial airline recently, and I was thinking about that this is where it gets into personal liberty is so important in my opinion, and personal choice is so important, that I've been vaccinated, I had a breakthrough case, I got COVID, almost 2 months ago now, that from a absolute medical scientific perspective, I've got more antibodies in my body than anyone possible. I am not at risk of catching COVID. I am not at risk of giving COVID to anyone. Those are absolute facts. It's also a medical fact. I have severe asthma. It limits my breathing when I have to wear a mask. And I'm on a 6-hour flight wearing a mask that I'm not at risk to myself. I'm not at risk to anyone else. I know that. I know that for a fact. Any doctor I would talk to knows that. I also know wearing a mask hurts me. It literally is a detriment to my health. It doesn't help my health. It doesn't help anyone else's health around me. It's actually a detriment to my health, but yet the federal government is forcing me to do it. That is the prototypical example of why one size does not fit all in all of these things. So I wanted to get that out there, not to go down this rabbit hole again, but I thought about that this past week because it was just the most common sense approach of why are we doing this when we're forcing people that actually have a detrimental health effect to do this when there is no upside to it, or forcing people that have recently had COVID, that they've got more antibodies than possible. So theoretically, we have someone that works in the water and sewer department, maybe Chris Broush or whoever, that just had COVID, has more antibodies, T-cell antibodies in their body than possible, and now we can come in and mandate, even though you're not a risk to you or anyone else because you recently had it, I'm going to force you to get a vaccination. I just don't think that's what this country is all about. So anyway, with that, we've got an executive session with Mr. Broush, but before we do that, I don't think we're going to take any action.
No action.
So we'll adjourn after that, but this is a public meeting. If anybody wants to address the board, we'll entertain that at this time.
Good morning. My name is Chris Colvin. I live at 1033 Justin Ridge Way, Waynesville, Ohio. I'd like to discuss with you a resolution that was passed, and I'll present this to you so you know what I'm talking about. Thank you. The resolution was done in December of 2019. It pertains to refugee resettlement in Warren County. I'm here asking you to revisit this because conditions have drastically changed since this resolution was passed. It has an allowance for 18,000 people to be refugees to place anywhere in our county. And one of the things that the stipulation was in point 2 was that the resettlement was based upon assumptions of screening, adjudication, and that these people are processed properly. The current administration has proven to me and many, many Americans that they cannot be trusted in this regard. This is a threat. I view this as a threat to my community and every other community, not only in Warren County, but in this nation. The President Trump passed an executive order which brought this resolution before you. It's my understanding this was a renewal, actually. And then COVID struck right about this time. Otherwise, I would have come and talked to you sooner. I have spoken to Ann Scheid through email correspondence, and I understand that there's not been a huge influx of refugees being placed in our county. That's not the point to me. The point to me is the door is wide open. And so I'm asking you if you would revisit this measure and reconsider this decision, repeal this resolution, because it's a threat. Secondly, one of the communities that's listed on here is Waynesville. I serve on Village Council in Waynesville. I am not aware of any reach out to our community in terms of the impacts of this decision. I believe that that's a mistake. Unless you can prove me wrong, I am not aware of any reach out to our community. And let the communities weigh in who are impacted by this. Because ultimately what will happen is these people will be placed in our community. Federal dollars will eventually dry up. And then it's on that community to support these people. And I'm sure that, even on council, we have discussed this. This is upsetting. And I bet you that there's a lot of people in Warren County who have no idea about this. And I understand you guys look at a lot of different things, but I am petitioning you and asking you to reconsider this resolution, especially in light of what we know today. I don't know what the arguments were in favor of this at the time it was done, but the conditions on the ground are completely different. Afghanistan, right now, this administration is talking about probably hundreds of thousands of refugees. They may not be targeted for Warren County, but I'm on Republican Central Committee for Warren County. They would love to change the dynamics of Warren County politically, as well as change the whole communities in which we live. So I would appreciate your response, not necessarily today, but I would like some kind of response on those two things, please. Thank you.
Could you state your name and address for the record?
Sure. Chris Colvin, 1033 Justin Ridge Way, Waynesville, Ohio.
Okay, thank you. We'll ask our law director to take a look at this and tell us what's going on with it, and we'll get back to it.
Okay, it's my understanding right now, it may be on a moratorium status because of it's still in the judiciary. And this is not a statement against this Catholic organization doing that, but they're not the ones adjudicating. They're not the ones that are supposed to be responsive in making sure that these people are screened.
We'll find out what's
Okay,
going on.
thank you very much.
Very good. Anyone else? Very good. Is there a motion to go into executive session relative to acquisition of property?
So moved.
Second?
And yes. Thank you all.